Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another episode where I attempt on building a motorhome from scratch. And guys, for you that are new to the channel, when I say from scratch, I mean from the bottom up. So basically, I bought an Iveco that was an accident and I completely stripped the cab off and I just started with a bare chassis and motor, and I've built everything to where it is standing now from the bottom up, from scratch. This is my own design, and I have had a lot of obstacles and problems that I needed to overcome, and a lot of designing and stuff like that needed to happen. So basically what I'm saying is that I'm not building a motorhome from scratch, I'm building a truck that's going to become a motorhome eventually if all goes to plan. And guys, this video has got a lot of obstacles that I also need to overcome. So let me turn the camera around and I'm going to show you all of the stuff that I need to do and how I intend on doing it. Okay guys, so as you can remember in the last video, I finished bonding this whole cab together and making sure that everything fit in its place, and I have then went ahead and I ordered a new windshield, which I hope it's going to be arriving very soon, so that I can put the windshield in position and then start by moving this cab or this motorhome out from underneath my shed, because I need some more space there at the back. And guys, it's the rainy season, so I'd really like to have the windshield in place so that I won't get any water running in there. But guys, so I hope I'm going to be able to do that in this video. But the main focus of this video, guys, is here at the back. Two things that really needs to happen in this video before I can start working on stuff like the slide outs and so on. Number one, guys, is that this rear overhang of the aluminium, if you guys can remember, is further than what the chassis is. So I need to extend the chassis there at the back so that I'll have enough strength there at the far back when I'm standing on this floor of the motorhome. That's the one thing I need to do. And the way that I'm going to attempt extending that chassis is I've gone ahead and I bought 2 lengths of lip channel that fits nice and snugly in between the existing chassis, and I can just fit it in there and extend it all the way to the back. And guys, here in South Africa, they are very strict that you're not allowed to cut or weld or drill into an existing chassis. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fit it in there in between that chassis, and I'm going to use the existing holes that are in this chassis and then bolt everything nicely and snugly into position. And because it fits so nicely in between those little eyelets of that lip channel, I believe it's going to be very strong. And another thing that I'm going to do then is I'm going to take this square tubing and then I'm going to make a cross brace the same as the cross braces that are in the existing chassis. And I'm also going to make it so that it'll be able to be bolted off and bolted loose and taken off for whatever reason. Guys, the second issue that I need to resolve in this video is, if you guys can remember, when I started making this aluminium frame, I did lift it off of the steel frame and I just put some spaces in between, because guys, an aluminium frame cannot lay directly onto a steel frame because it will start corroding and rot away. And secondly, I really wanted to put some rubber isolation between the chassis and the body so that it'll also help with stuff like rattles and noise coming from the chassis. Now guys, so one of the options would have been to just went ahead and bought plenty of these rubber mountings that you can just slip in there between the aluminium frame and the chassis, and they have got a plate on top and bottom where you can just bolt everything together. But my problem with this, guys, is that these rubber mountings, or these plates, are only molded into these rubber mountings, and they could theoretically tear off of each other. And I've seen it happen when I use this on engine mounts in some of my project cars. So I'm not going to be doing that. Now the second thing that I could do is just put a rubber in between and then bolt it down from the top right to the bottom, but that'll defeat the purpose because the steel bolts would still be directly connected between the aluminium frame and the steel chassis, and all the noise and rattles and also the electrolytic corrosion effect would still take place because this aluminium chassis would still be directly connected to the steel frame. So guys, here is my plan. What I went ahead and done is I bought this nice thick rubber This is the stuff that I also use on big heavy duty trucks to isolate the body and the frame. And what I did was I just cut a piece off of that rubber that I'm going to be sticking underneath in between the aluminium and the steel chassis. And then, just to keep everything centered, I took that thick gauge pipe and I just drilled a hole into this rubber that I'm just going to put that thick gauge pipe in there so that it'll help it center nicely and keep it in the center of that hole that I drilled into this aluminium frame. And what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to put a rubber that I cut to size on top of that and another rubber on top of that, and then I can put my bolt through like so. And as you can see, it's going to isolate the aluminium frame from the steel chassis completely, and still it's going to be very, very strong. When I bolt everything down, it will not go anywhere, and it's going to be completely isolated from the steel chassis. So guys, these are the things I'm going to do in this video. Probably going to be a lot of time lapses happening, but as soon as I got that done, everything should be nice and rigid, and then I can start working on these slide outs. So let me start the back. I'm going to work my way to the front, and then I'm going to update you in a second. Okay guys, there we go. I've now finished extending this chassis and it is super duper strong. The fitment between the old chassis and this new extension is extremely tight, as you saw probably me having to hammer it and nudge in position, and I tightened it with those nuts and bolts. It ain't never ever coming loose, except for if you wanted to. And I also put this extra bar in between, give it extra rigidity, and I can also use that now for mounting something underneath, like maybe a spare wheel or a water tank or whatever. Now the next thing I can do is I can start making these rubber mounts and installing them, fitting this aluminium frame to the chassis permanently and securely. Okay guys, there we go. I've now finished installing all of these mounts, and this frame is now properly secured to the chassis, and with that extension at the back, the foundations for this motorhome has now been laid and everything is proper and in place. And another thing that just happened is the guys that does the installation of the glass was here, and they installed the glass. I had the professionals do it for me. Took them a few seconds and they installed it, and it's perfect and brand new, and that's awesome. So now I'll be able to move the motorhome out from underneath my shed so I can start working at the back. And probably the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on laying the floor, putting the floor in position, because I've got the material already, and then I can start working on the slide outs. And also guys, there's a couple of changes that has now in the meantime taken place as far as the slide out is concerned, but I will tell you all about that next week. If you guys haven't subscribed yet and you want to follow this build, make sure to subscribe, because that's going to be it for this video. And until then, cheers.